The forest had always been a place of mystery, but for me, it was also a place of comfort. I grew up in a small town where the woods stretched endlessly beyond the hills, dense with towering trees whose branches tangled together like secrets whispered through the ages. People in town said the woods were haunted. They told stories about voices that drifted through the night, of shadows that lingered even when no one was there, and of those who went inside and never returned. But as a child, I found those tales thrilling more than frightening. My grandmother used to say, "The woods listen, but they don't always forgive." At the time, I thought it was just one of her strange old sayings. Years later, I would learn it was more of a warning. It was late autumn when I returned home after years of living away in the city. The crisp air carried the earthy smell of fallen leaves, and the branches rattled against each other like bones in the wind. My life had been crumbling. My marriage dissolved, my career stalled, and loneliness seemed to cling to me like ivy. Coming back to the town where I grew up felt like stepping into the only safe place I knew. My childhood home had long been sold, but I rented a small cabin on the edge of the woods, the same forest that had been the backdrop of every story I heard growing up. The first few nights in the cabin were quiet. Too quiet, actually. The silence seemed heavier than in the city, pressing against my ears until I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in the dark. Then on the third night, I heard it, the faintest whisper, like wind threading through the trees. At first, I told myself it was just the forest, alive with night sounds. But the more I listened, the more I realized it wasn't wind. It was words. "Come closer." The voice was soft, almost melodic, carried with a rhythm that tugged at me. I sat up in bed, straining to hear. When I peeked through the window, the woods looked like an ocean of shadows, shifting and restless. My breath fogged the glass, and for a moment, I thought I saw movement between the trees, just a flicker, like someone stepping out of sight. The next morning, I asked the woman at the town's little grocery store if anyone still talked about the woods. Her face tightened, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Best to keep out of there at night," she said flatly. "The forest remembers, and it doesn't like to be disturbed." I laughed it off, though uneasily. But the whispers didn't stop. Each night, they grew a little louder, a little clearer. Sometimes it sounded like one voice, other times like many, overlapping and murmuring in tones I couldn't quite decipher. The strangest part was that I began to dream of the woods even when I was awake. During the day, I'd catch myself staring at the tree line, feeling like someone or something was staring back. One night, I decided to follow the whispers. I don't know what possessed me. Maybe it was loneliness, or maybe the pull of the unknown had finally outweighed my fear. With only a flashlight in hand, I stepped into the forest. The air seemed to shift immediately, colder, sharper, almost charged with something electric. Every crunch of leaves beneath my boots felt deafening in the stillness. The voices guided me deeper, weaving through the trees in a haunting harmony. I don't remember how long I walked, but eventually, I came upon a clearing I didn't recognize. In the center stood an enormous oak, older and broader than any tree I had ever seen. Its bark was gnarled and split, with deep grooves that looked almost like faces, twisted in silent screams. My flashlight flickered, and the whispers grew urgent, circling around me, impossible to pinpoint. Stay with us." I stumbled backward, but the ground beneath my feet seemed to shift, sucking me toward the tree. For a moment, I swore I saw figures in the bark, faces pressing outward, mouths moving, eyes hollow. Panic clawed at my throat, and I ran, branches tearing at my clothes and skin as the voices rose in a crescendo of pleading and anger. By the time I burst out of the woods and back to the cabin, my lungs burned, and my legs trembled so badly I could barely stand. The next morning, bruises marked my arms, long scratches lined my neck, and dirt clung to my hair as if I had been buried. I tried to convince myself it was all in my head. Maybe I had fallen asleep walking. Maybe stress and exhaustion had played tricks on me. But when I checked my boots, they were caked with mud from places deep in the forest where no path existed. I told myself I would stay away from the woods, but the whispers wouldn't let me. They crept back into my nights, soft at first, then insistent, growing louder until I could hear them even during the day. I began to lose track of time, my reflection in the mirror looking less like me each morning. My eyes were hollow, my skin pale, and sometimes when I blinked, I thought I saw bark beneath my flesh. One evening, as I sat by the fireplace, I heard a knock at the door. When I opened it, No one was there, just the forest stretching beyond, dark and patient. A cold gust swept past me, carrying with it a whisper so close it felt like it brushed my ear. You belong to us now. Fear rooted me to the spot. My grandmother's words echoed in my mind. The woods listen, but they don't always forgive. I realized then what she had meant. The whispers weren't calling me. They were claiming me. Every story I had heard growing up wasn't a myth, but a warning. The woods weren't haunted. They were hungry, and they had chosen me.